I am fighting for honor in the tradition of Haru the Elder, certainly from Ari Ara, the Igbo viewpoint. The view of the leopard and the hawk. I apologize if I was too harsh. I've asked people at times if I'm too harsh. They basically said I'm good, and it's understandable. And at times they believe that I come off as cocky. I do believe I have a good sense of myself in the greater scheme of things, and that I'm not cocky, but rather from the viewpoint of those people who refuse to accept reality, it comes off as condescending and cocky and arrogant and what have you. To some, even pompous. Understand that people struggle. They worry about their families. They worry about themselves. They are basically coerced and forced to do things from their point of view. I do believe strongly that people should never compromise their morality, even if it damages their family. I've gone to great lengths to correct the few mistakes I've made in my videos. And when you've made 4,000 videos for 9 years, upset, harassed, persecuted, off and on psych meds and so on, one can expect me to make mistakes. But I have corrected them masterfully, and I have pointed out exactly why they were made with a great proficiency. The wise archer looks within himself to see why he missed his mark, but he also looks around to see why everyone else is. He looks within himself to understand why he met his mark and why they missed theirs. He looks within them. Focal point, the focus, the center of rays, of waves, of a movement, of activity. The leopard was centered in sub-Saharan Africa, in West Africa especially. Egypt is like a ray and an angle, perhaps the most successful angle because of where people were standing, that delivered the message. It was eventually rejected. I see myself as coming from the tribe that has common ancestors with Asiatic people. Regardless of what the Human Genome Project says, I see it in their features, in their faces. One way or another, the genes that express the bodies that are similar are found in my grandparents, my father's side. I see the genes of the people that resemble the Jews in my father's side and in my mother's side. White, black, Asian, Semitic. I see myself in all of these. I don't think that I am racist. I don't think that I've been unfair. I think that my expressions, though harsh, were necessary to communicate my point, to convey them. I think part of the beauty of this thing, the beauty and the drama, the misfortune, part of the beauty in what you might describe as the leopard spots, is that I show a validity and sincerity, and I have truly validated my point of view, I'd say, with these expressions of anger, moral outrage, righteous indignation. And you can see, if you go through the videos, you look at my older videos, my recent videos, you see the drugging. You hear it. Psych meds are said to cause the same symptoms they claim to address. And certainly this comes from trial and error, and there have been a lot of drugs taken off the market, and a lot of drugs never even put on the market. They cause symptoms and brain damage, neurological damage, cognitive impairment, etc. I think that I have been just and fair. And when I put out these last two videos, which will seem to be harsh to everybody but myself, I think it is important to note, again, that I am fighting for true honor, not image or reputation, as some of the African martial artists in this book, this very book, were fighting for image and reputation. But this specific form of honor that is referred to in the end, I believe is the last page, before the notes and the appendix and so on and so forth, right? The last page of the actual book. This is the honor that I'm referring to, the spirit, this idea. This is the core of martial arts, and the human experience is sacrifice for the principles that came down from Ra. Most of these people, if not all of them, were not followers of Ra, but rather they had a more intact martial arts system than the ones we see present today in America and around the world, with the possible exception being in closed societies in West Africa and perhaps in a few other places. Okay. Thus, fighting ability under the right circumstances provided exceptional individuals with the force to demand dignity. Even the less fortunate, who were killed in their attempts to defend their honor, died fighting as proud women and men. Both they and the more successful claimed their bodies as their own. Those who resisted the dishonor of whipping disarmed their oppressors of the central means of physical discipline. Their resistance ideologically rejected their status as mere chattel objects and proclaimed their authority over their own bodies and their will above that of their enslavers. This is a very profound level that both men and women tapped into, this profound level of this idea. And it is the true honor of proclaiming their bodies as their own and having human dignity. And those who did it in the name of higher morality were the most successful of this group that they're referring to. Certainly, those who died fighting, those who fought and on some level were conscious, aware of the possibility, the distinct possibility, the likelihood that they would be struck down, and they fought anyway. They didn't beg for mercy. The most valiant of them, the most valorous, the most respectable, they died. That is the core of the martial arts system. A willingness to die for higher principles and following through. You must make the distinction between this and the terrorist or people in Islam in general who refuse to accept the true order, as Islam, the Quran, is said to be revised over the years by some people who claim to be descendants of Muhammad, and this is important as well. Let's not overlook, and that is the last page, of the body of the work. Okay, let's not overlook page 11 that I've referred to for maybe 5 or 6 years now in my videos. Mastery in either art could bring. Okay, let's start the paragraph above, page 11, introduction, second to last paragraph. Although the Biafran grappling and the Angolan percussive arts were stylistically very different, both fulfilled similar social roles. Both were used as a form of entertainment when practiced in music, a form of dueling to settle personal scores, a ritualized form of conflict resolution, or a form of battlefield training for young soldiers. Remember, the Leopard Society, they drew on certain grappling techniques, which basically Diumba was throwing the enemy to the ground, which called on a certain form and strength and muscle alignment that is similar to the leopard, okay, who pulls himself up the tree and pulls up his prey, the corpse of his prey, with him, okay, which takes an enormous amount of strength. So he has strategy, strength, speed, and focus, and so on and so forth. Okay. Central to all contexts is the concept of honor for the practitioner, and often for the community through the honored practitioner. So when those who claim to represent the Creator do something dishonorable, they are actually dishonoring the cult of Ra. Okay, and so it is with those who claim to be followers of Horus, especially. And we don't see very many people claiming that. Even those who claim to follow Egypt, and that's a telltale sign of treachery, because Horus is the archetype of Pharaoh. If you want your people to truly be respected, certainly you would turn to Horus the Elder and Ra, and not Amen or Ptah, etc. Anyway, mastery in either art could bring a skilled practitioner respect for his graceful execution, the admiration of potential wives, and economic advancement. Now think of grace as more than just demonstration, but executing strikes masterfully, timing, and grace. Okay, so one could see something that to one martial art expert might appear to be sloppy, but to the wise observer is actually full of grace. It is the grace of ancestors, a striking resemblance in the strike. Each art provided a path of spiritual development. that could take an exceptional adept to one of the highest forms of honor in Africa, the status of a transcendent hero. Some who is initiated into full mastery of Angolo could become a special kind of ancestor, one who could physically manifest in the bodies of his descendants. And this theme is part of the cultural memory, the intangible heritage I've referred to recently, and part of the essence of every martial arts practice. You are not just doing arts of war, but it is the continuity, it is the transference of the transcendent heroes that most embody the art, heroes of old. Martial arts is about the top martial artist before, transferring those ideas to you through his offspring, his West African offspring. This is key. If that is lost, it is invalid for that to be a true martial art or for it to have true honor. Similarly, the Biafran art of Umba and its cognates could serve as a tool to achieve the highest of honors. The highest of honors. The highest. No one is honored more. No one. In the most populated nation, in the place where we all come from, where martial arts comes from, Africa, in the continent everyone comes from, in the focal point, in the heart, in the center, in the core, in the Ra, the strength of the core of the sun, the core of the temple, West Africa, Biafra, where the leopard roams, the core, where people migrated to after the Sahara spread and the leopards were hardly found outside of sub-Saharan Africa, in Africa. The most honored of ancestors, who could be called upon for guidance in important matters. How? Do I pick up a telephone? No, I do the martial arts. And my mind starts to align itself with my body and my soul and the spirit that this person has faded into. That is the only way. Cultural memory, spiritual memory, martial arts memory. And could reincarnate in this manner, ra in core. No. Not reincarnate among the living while retaining a position among the dead ancestors. In this sense, both Angola and Umba can be understood as martial arts and more specifically as martial ways in the strict sense. Senses. Not super sensible as defined by the non-martial artists, but in the strictest sense. So what do we see here? What should a man be the most upset about? This has everything to do with that which is the most important to a sane man. His cultural heritage, his most honored and respectable and worthy family members, the wisest and the best in his family before, during, and possibly after his offspring. You can discard any family members who don't honor this. And yes, I say that with a heavy heart. It hurts me to know that people betray those ideas, especially to survive. The core of honor, the core of virtue, is the willingness to sacrifice one's flesh, even one's family, one's flesh, the flesh of my flesh, for these higher principles. How can then one fault me for my expected response to persecution and sabotage? Again, I apologize if I was too harsh. No one is perfect. But I do not apologize for trying to restore the divine order that the most worthy of men historically, throughout time, have impressed upon us all.